Munster, that was a very dominant win against Hyperion. How was the team feeling before the match, and obviously, how are they feeling now?
Uh, right now, feeling great. Before the match, we had just come off a loss in our opening IM game of the season. So coming off of that loss, we were slightly shaky. But before this game, we had some great conversations, some great discussion about the things we need to focus on when we're playing and the things that we need to be making sure we're staying on top of. And we came into this game with very strong focus on those things and managed to win pretty easily.
Coming against FlyQuest Red, it was a very difficult game for you. How do you go from coming back from a loss, resetting the team, and getting them focused for the next week?
So it's a little bit easier against a team like FlyQuest to reset mentally because they're the top of the division. They're the top dogs of NA Impact. So even though we want to win and we're trying our best to win, we understand that losing is always going to be a possibility against them. We managed to start that series off really strong, which we were very happy about the way we played that first map. But we really fell apart in those second games. And it was easy to kind of reset because the things we did poorly were very clear to us. It was very obvious what our mistakes were those games. So being able to have those discussions was very straightforward and very simple, which made it really easy to refocus and come into the next few days and the next matches with a more positive outlook.
With the format changes in North America, with the top two teams now going through, Shimmer, they need to, in my understanding, for you to qualify, would need to lose tonight against FlyQuest Red, and then you would need to beat them next week. What does the preparation look like going into that game against Shimmer, regardless of the result that they achieve against FlyQuest?
Mm-hmm. So we've had this conversation a couple times as a team about like what it would take to still qualify, and the because it's a little convoluted, like there's some head-to-head stuff that needs to happen. Um, we pretty much agreed unanimously that we're just gonna focus on our own games, make sure we win out the rest of the season, and then that way, regardless of what happens with the other matchups that we don't have any control over, um, at least we won't regret what happened. So nothing's going to change for us. We're still going to do the exact same things, practice and work on the exact same things that we have been leading up to the Shimmer game. And we're just going to do our best to play the way that we are trying our best to every single day to play.
And when it comes to a coach's perspective, especially when it comes to the ESL Impact scene, we haven't
Mm-hmm.
really been able to speak too often to the coaches and often figure out what goes on behind the scenes. Could you just give me like a example day in the life of what you do as a coach?
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, it's probably what you would expect. Um, watching back our games, paying attention during our games, and taking notes, and trying to identify our weaknesses. Then doing some preparation about those weaknesses to possibly find some solutions. Then coming into practice and making sure the team understands what we're going to be focusing on that day, and just having discussions surrounding those issues or those weaknesses or those mistakes that we made in those previous games. And then through those discussions, we can start making adjustments to the way we play or adding in things that we think would help us solve those issues. And then once everybody's on the same page for what the issues are and what the solutions we're going to try and implement are, um, we just do our best to get reps on them in scrims and practice. Match review, when we have matches that we play, we go back and we watch them together, or we find the important rounds from those games, and we identify like the macro things in those games that went wrong. We make sure to discuss it as a team, make sure everybody's on the same page, the same way we would for a normal practice day about what the issue is and then what the solution is. And once everybody's on the same page, we do our best to implement the solution and get reps on it.
How has the transition been from CS:GO to CS2? Is it tough? Obviously, not knowing too much about the game and its changes and not having too many demos to sit back and review
Mhm.
on, or are you looking at it like it's a blank canvas? Everyone's going to be in the same boat. We're just going to try our best because fundamentally, it's kind of the same game.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's in the same boat, so that helps, right? Nobody got an earlier start in Impact. Everybody switched at the exact same time. Um, but pretty much it's a little bit of both, honestly. Like, it is a new canvas in a way, but fundamentally, I think the game still plays the same. All the same micro concepts or macro concepts apply to CS2 that didn't CS:GO. The way you are supposed to play as a team, the way you prepare, the way you practice, the way you make your team better, the way you make yourself better, it's all exactly the same. So, despite it being a different game, and of course it has its hiccups and the little things that make it a little frustrating sometimes. Overall, it's still the same game. So as long as you remember that and you keep putting in the same amount of work, maybe even a little bit more to get a slight head start on the rest of the teams, then there really shouldn't be any issues from the transition.
How difficult has it been not having a coach slot in CS2?
Ugh, yeah, I mean that's to be honest, it hasn't been too bad yet. Um, it's different for sure. Only being able to watch like one or two people's Discord streams, it's a lot less information I'm able to get. It's a lot more staring at a mini map than it was before. I could like switch between POVs, which used to be nice, but now I'm trying to piece the puzzle together from the mini map as best as I can. But overall, I feel like I've always been pretty good at that. Even in Go, I used to do that a lot. So not having the coach slot hasn't really impacted me personally too much.
And I guess a much more niche thing is when's the ideal time slash how do you know in specific moments in game when to call for a timeout, because now ESL have reduced the amount of timeouts you have in
Mm.
game down from 4 to 3. I know you get an additional one if you hit overtime, but what's that been like, and has that changed your, I guess, philosophy on taking timeouts?
I've never really had like a hard set like rules for taking timeouts. For me, it's always been very instinctual. So like I never really was paying a lot of attention to like specific things that would force me to want to take a timeout. It's always just been like, do I feel like they need it? And if like even a small part of me feels like they might need it, I would ask for it. But other than that, it's if I know I have a read that I want to pass along to them that is going to take more than the 15 seconds of freeze time to explain, um, then that's when I would ask for a timeout. But other than that, I would let the team do their own thing for the majority of the game and let them handle the freeze time calls. And unless like something really brought the team's mental down, I wouldn't bother disrupting their flow.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Just more like a feeling thing,
Yeah,
rather than like, okay, well, we've ecoed, now it's a forced buy. Well, now we're
yeah,
fully invested. Let's just take a pause to kind of think about things. That's
yeah,
interesting.
exactly. Yeah.
I know there's various different coaches that kind of implement different
Yeah. So like if we
strategies.
lose three in a row, then we have to time out. Or
Yeah.
if we know the other team's on eco, then we have to have something like proper set. It's I've never really been that type of person. I've always been like if I feel like the team is in a weaker mental position than they started, maybe give them a couple seconds to reset through a timeout. If I notice something really important, then yeah, I'll use a timeout, speak up, and make sure that they understand it because that's also important too. You can explain something in the 15 seconds of freeze time, but unless everybody understands my read, then it's not really going to be valuable. So having that extra 20, 30 seconds in the tack pause is really, really useful for making sure everybody's on the same page.
My last question for you is: throughout your time at Evil Geniuses Gold, what has been the one key takeaway, the key piece that you've learned since being a coach?
Ooh, never thought about that. Main takeaway. Hmm. I might need like 2 days to answer that question. Jeez. Yeah, I'm not really sure. For the most part, it's been mostly the same. I mean, aside from like obviously my last teams were much higher ranked, right? So aside from like the slight skill difference, like there's not really much change. Like the players are trying equally as hard. They're like working together. The communication is the same. Um, the emphasis and practice is all on the same exact stuff. The conversations that I have post pregame, in practice, on one-on-one, like all the conversations are the same types of conversations. So I guess my main takeaway is that it's like the difference between Impact and the traditional leagues is just pretty much the same stuff. It's just as it just needs time to develop into the same skill level.